How's your summer going? Is it going well?
It is going well. It's going very quick. I've been a busy person this summer.
You go on vacation over the summer? You go anywhere interesting?
Try to get away to the New Jersey shore a little bit for weekends, but this is an election year, and my weekends have been busy in Montgomery County.
So you're running for re-election. There are two Republican candidates. The other Republican candidate was on earlier this week, Fred Connor. The Democratic majority commissioners are running for re-election. They're the Democratic nominees. They'll be on Monday. And we have an unusual situation here on the Republican side. There really isn't a ticket, is there?
Oh, not at all.
Right.
And I heard the opposite earlier in the week when I heard the other Republican nominee's interview.
He seems to be optimistic that somewhere there's going to be some sort of coming together here.
It's a falsehood of optimism because he has to have that. The reality of this race is it's a race over the minority seat on the Board of Commissioners, the seat that I currently hold. And the number one goal of both political parties, both the Democrat Party and the Republican Party, is to unseat me and take control of the minority seat. And their candidate of choice to do that is Fred Connor. We are not running as a team. We do not communicate with one another. I hardly see him. There's no association with him. And I was shocked for him to come on the air and actually tell the listeners that we're running as a team. That's far from the truth.
He seemed, I thought it was, a cockeyed optimism, but you think it's something less than that.
Well, he has a history of lying, and that's how he became the Republican nominee. He had to lie and cheat in the Republican primary to get elected. One way he did that was through the fake green sample ballots that committee people distributed and handed out on Election Day at the polls. The true ballot was supposed to say no endorsement for the first time ever in the history of the Montgomery County Republican Committee. There was no endorsement for county commissioner. I suppose to leave that up to the voters, because the last thing the Republican Party would ever want to do is endorse Joe Gale. So that would be a tough sell to explain why they didn't endorse the incumbent county commissioner, so they went with no endorsement. But behind the scenes, there was a big shadow endorsement for Fred Connor, and one of their tactics was to intentionally deceive the voters by handing out fake green ballots that had his name appear on it.
Now you brought in some ballots with you here, and what was this coordination?
Everywhere I go, I bring those ballots because I want to bring truth to this and shine a light on it, that the Republican voters were intentionally deceived. And this is the type of behavior we're dealing with now post-primary. They did it in the primary. Now he's lying that we're running as a team. That's far from the truth. Their goal is to unseat me as minority commissioner. And I have to let the public know what's going on. And I've been very transparent as a candidate. I've been very transparent as a county commissioner. And I feel like I owe that to the public here.
So why did the Democrats care whether Joe Gale is there or not? I mean, the Democrats get to make the decisions. They're in the majority. Essentially what they say goes.
Right. Well, anyone listening to the show, if they follow your program or they follow county government and follow my story, they know that I've been shaking things up in county government. I've been a disruptor to county government. And that's what I campaigned on in 2015, and I delivered on those campaign promises. I haven't been a lapdog like my predecessor. I've been a watchdog for the taxpayers in Montgomery County, and I've been providing checks and balances on that board. I serve with two Democrats in the majority. I'm the minority Republican, but I take that role very seriously. And they try to portray me in the primary as someone that votes with the Democrats all the time. But what they did not identify is that there's hundreds and hundreds of procedural votes in the role of a county commissioner that are not partisan. Things like approving meeting minutes, adjourning the meeting, salary board, advertising RFP, awarding contracts. I've certainly casted an unprecedented number of no votes and have been a controversial figure in the sense of the board that I provide an alternative viewpoint, spending cuts, opposing tax increases, opposing corruption and pay-to-play politics. That's what I'm all about, and I'm trying to seek a second term to keep that going.
Where do you believe you've had the most effect in the almost 4 years that you've been county commissioner?
I think I've had the biggest effect on shining a spotlight on the endless cycle and a culture of corruption and scandal that the public's well aware of. They hear about it a lot on the federal level, the state level, but I'm letting them know it happens at the county and local level as well. And I think that that would really be my trademark in the first term, identifying a culture of corruption where campaign donors reap the benefits of county contracts, many times one-bid contracts, because they donate to my colleagues' campaigns, and it's payback time. And I oppose that type of behavior. I'm outspoken about it, and if I'm not there, the public's not aware of it. So many times I get outvoted 2-1, but at least I'm a true minority commissioner that holds the Democrats accountable, I hold Republicans accountable, and I do the best I possibly can to make sure that there's a conservative voice on that board. If I'm not there, I can tell you, Darryl, the other candidate seeking my position as the minority commissioner, he will be a lapdog. He is a puppet on a string controlled by establishment insiders and party bosses because the Republican Party wants a piece of the action in county government.
So, and I'm trying to get my mind around this because this is unprecedented in the history of county politics, really, where you've got two candidates that are on, they're both nominated by the same party, but are really running against each other. Are you saying that it would be a better scenario for you, or that you would be more effective if the Democrats were reelected to the majority as opposed to you and Fred Connor being on with either Val Arkush or Ken Lawrence?
Well, it's just not the reality. You have to, you just have to look at things and realize what's actually going to happen here.
But the reality is so bizarre. That's why
it's a very unique race where there's a mandated minority position on the board. Not many forms of government have that body.
Right.
But the Democrats have a voter registration advantage. They're the incumbents. They have the money behind them because they're in power, and they can dish out the county contracts that I've been exposing. And when you have the Republican Party establishment apparatus trying to defeat the incumbent Republican commissioner, it's just not going to happen. So they have to say that. The Republican Party has to say that I'm running as a team with Fred Connor, because they want to misguide the voters and make them think vote for both. And then behind the scenes, just like what they did in primary, third-party political action committees that are based out of Washington, D.C., will attack me and smear me with lies and distortions of my record in a desperate attempt to bring down my popularity and defeat me. Mm-hmm. And then they play oblivious to it. But I know for a fact they're behind it, they're involved with it, and it's going to happen again. So I know their playbook, and I'm exposing their tactics.
Are you going to spend any time running against the Democrats?
Well, I think my first term as commissioner, I've been hitting the Democrats. I've been critical of the Democrats. And I think if you ask the Democrats, they would tell you that. It has not been a gravy train with me on the board as a minority commissioner. I've been holding them accountable, and I hit everyone. If I think it's wrong and it's not right for the families and taxpayers in Montgomery County, I bring it up. I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. And what I've come to learn is the permanent establishment class, where we have both parties, a leadership, best friends. And it's all about colluding so they have power. And it doesn't matter which party's in power, they're content because it's their friend, it's their political crony that they can make deals with.
Is it, and this is a bit of what if, which really doesn't mean a whole lot at this point, but what had you been nominated with your brother? Sean Gale was also part of the primary.
Sure. Had I been successful in the primary along with Sean Gale, we would have had a very competitive general election. That's the last thing.
Even with the demographics.
Even with the demographics, right. I'm very confident of that because that's the last thing both parties wanted. I think the Democrat Party would probably have to spend about $2 million to fend us off. Is it a long shot to win back the county? Of course. But it's an off-year election with low turnout, with a compatible team that's unified with the goal of restoring common sense and conservative government to Montgomery County by taking back a majority. That's not the agenda of the Republican Party. The Republican Party establishment's agenda is to unseat me.
So, and I don't even know if you're the right person to answer this question, but what is your existence due to the Montgomery County Republican Party? What has it meant so far, other than that, there's some folks that wish they'd never seen you.
Existence is a good word, because they do not want me to exist.
Right.
They want me gone.
But do you think there's a reformation within an internal reformation that some people would like to see or are trying to mobilize?
I mean, of course, there's people bitter about 2015. They're upset that I had an upset in 2015 and overcame the odds. And in politics, you deal with a lot of egos, and people don't like the fact that a 26-year-old 4 years ago was elected to the highest elected office without ever holding an office. Typically, a county commissioner was a state representative or a high-profile district attorney. I never held office. I bucked the system, I took on the good old boys, and I beat them. I beat them in the primary 2015, the general election of 2015, the primary of 2019, and I plan on beating again this general election on November 5th. And that's what I bring to the table. I am not beholden to the Republican Party establishment. I'm my own guy. I'm not a puppet on a string like the other candidate. And I put the people before politics, and I have a proven record of doing so.
I mean, is that something you'd like to see, though, the party change or reform itself?
Well, I guess
I'm looking for what is Joe Gale's agenda?
Well, my agenda is to disrupt that culture of corruption where establishment insiders get rich off our tax dollars. And I've been doing that. If the listeners go on YouTube and search Joe Gale, you'll see a series of videos, one after another, where I identify campaign donors getting county contracts with my colleagues right next to me. That's not going to happen. So I'm doing what I can at a county capacity to disrupt that corrupt system. Therefore, I have a big target on my back. I mean, I'm proud of that target.
The Republican Party operatives that, because you've been on the program a number of times, they say, well, what's Joe Gale looking for? What does he want? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, clearly he has disrupted he's turned over the apple cart.
Yeah, and I think that was desperately needed. And that's what I'm all about. I think the status quo is leading this county in the wrong direction, and I'm a voice of common sense and conservatism in an area that desperately needs it. I feel like a lot of Republicans in Montgomery County feel alienated by other Republican representatives, which continues to decrease year after year. But I'm a conservative voice for them in an area that doesn't have it. And in my view, I am the face of the Republican Party. They don't know, the general public doesn't know what committee people do, what a state committee is, who the chairman of the county party is or the state party. They don't care about that. But they see me. I'm out in the public at unprecedented levels, and I engage with the public. So, I survived the primary despite a massive attack and lies and smears, and they had to cheat to win. I survived the primary because I'm blessed to have the people behind me.
I used to ask a former county commissioner all the time about what his future political plans were, and he never really answered me, although clearly he had future political plans, and he's the current state attorney general, Josh Shapiro. So I'll ask you, and you actually wanted to run for lieutenant governor. So you have other things that you might want to do politically.
Well, I think
what is that next step?
It's obviously a reality. I do well politically. I know every time I have the apparatus against me, spending a lot of financial resources against me, but I am able to prevail because my team, we have natural political instincts, and we're successful with engaging in the public. I am a major problem for both political parties because I have a big following in southeastern Pennsylvania, which, as you know, has a high population, and there's no longer a significant Republican presence. Pat Meehan's gone. Ryan Costello's gone. Brian Fitzpatrick, I don't think, setting the world on fire in a Republican primary. There is no other Republican in the surrounding Republican county commissioners, to be frank, aren't very exciting as far as moving the conservative base. I do that, and I'm a young guy, possibly with a future, and the last thing they want is someone running for a higher office that's not beholden to the establishment.
So where do you want to move that political needle?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I ran for lieutenant governor. Unfortunately, they removed my name from the ballot due to my age, but I ran because the Republican-endorsed candidate, Jeff Bartos, is an establishment insider with a long history of working against me, a true conservative outsider. He's a puppet for them. He has a long history of donating to Democrats, and ironically, last week he was appointed campaign finance chair of the Pennsylvania Republican Party, someone that has a long history of donating to Democrats. Just goes to show you another way that proves my point, what their true intentions are. Their true intentions are to get rich off our tax dollars. And when I see someone like a Jeff Bartos running for a higher office, I feel like I have an obligation to smack them back and give people a choice. Do
you believe that you might not finish out your term? If you were elected, you may not finish out your term because you have other political interests.
I don't see that happening. You know, my goal is November 5th to have be elected to a second term, and that's quickly approaching. That's something I have to focus on. But you never know what happens in politics. What I always say is, you know, look at Pat Meehan. Here you had a sitting congressman that had to resign in disgrace over sexual harassment charges. So we had a taxpayer settlement with a 20-some-year-old staffer. Val DeGiorgio.
Soulmate. It was a soulmate.
Yeah, it's creepy is what it was.
A little bit.
Val DeGiorgio, the former disgraced chairman of the Pennsylvania Republican Party, had to resign this summer. Who knew that was going to happen?
Yeah.
So things change in politics, and you never know. So that's a major problem for the establishment, and I'm glad it is. It's well-deserved.
We're going to take a break. Joe Gale's with us in studio. And we're back on Comment Please Be Innovest. We've got a few minutes left with Joe Gale, Minority Commissioner of Montgomery County, who is running for re-election. And there's another Republican, but they're not running together. And there's no real chance of reconciliation, right, Joe Gale?
Zero chance.
Okay, I got that. What kind of cautionary notes would you have about another 4 years of the Democrats realizing that you're not so much focused on them, maybe necessarily politically, but, you know, as if you are reelected as a minority commissioner that you would want to keep an eye on?
Well, you know, that's why I spark a lot of interest, because like I said earlier in the program, I'm critical of both parties, and I'm on the board with two Democrats that I'm not a bobblehead for them. I truly provide those checks and balances, and in my second term, I intend to do the same thing. One of the big items, obviously, in the second term will be the construction of the new county campus in Norristown,
right.
Building the new Justice Center.
The largest capital project in the history of the county.
Correct. Yeah, over $400 million. They'd like to implement a project labor agreement, which would mandate that all the construction work is done by unionized firms, which in return has a higher price tag for the taxpayers of the county, something that I've been trying to fight. But things happen, like John Doherty, the union boss at IBEW, was indicted earlier this year. Things like an election came up this year. If I'm not on that board as a minority commissioner, the other Republican will go along to get along and partake in that behavior. He won't combat it the way I combat it. I can tell just the way that he lies in the interviews. He'll lie as a county commissioner. He is an establishment insider, puppet on a string that will not disrupt and provide checks and balances the way I'm doing on that board.
Something I hadn't heard, and I should have asked as a follow-up when Fred Connor was on the program, was this issue of a sanctuary county. And I can't ever remember it being implemented or being approved or being voted on. What is the status of Montgomery County as it relates to being a sanctuary county?
That's true. It was never voted on. It was never a topic of discussion in a public setting. And matter of fact, it was never a discussion in a private setting. The listeners know I'm a strong supporter of our president. I'm a strong supporter of border security and building the wall on the southern border. And had that ever come up in the capacity as my role as county commissioner, I would have been very outspoken and opposed to Montgomery County being a sanctuary county.
Yeah.
Now, the other Republican candidate has to create an issue, because I have a good record. I have a true, solid conservative record, and the public's aware of that. So they have to create a level of hysteria and scare people and make them believe that Montgomery County is a sanctuary county. Now, it has a lot of gray areas on that topic. One of them being is Montgomery County doesn't have one single police department. We have 62 municipalities within the county with 51 police departments, individual police departments. The other municipalities covered by state police. So when a individual police department in a municipality arrests a criminal and they happen to learn that they're not a citizen, that jurisdiction has the opportunity to notify ICE and let the ICE know that we have an illegal alien in custody. Now, when that criminal is sent to our county courthouse or our county correctional facility, county government does not have the obligation to notify ICE that they're an illegal alien. I disagree with that. That's something that I'm going to try to discuss, with senior staff in the county and our public safety department and our warden at the correctional facility. I think that's something we should do. That's something I will be addressing. But again, they're trying to create a level of hysteria to motivate Republican voters because, to be frank, I listened to the other Republicans' interview. It's so boring, it's enough to put you to sleep. They have no enthusiasm behind the campaign. They have no steam behind the campaign. They're sucking wind, and they have to throw things out like that when everybody knows, had it ever come down to a vote, I would have been very opposed to Montgomery County being a sanctuary status.
I believe you've got a website, and
I do.
People can follow you through social media.
My website is joegale.com. My Facebook page is Vote Joe Gale. I update that every day, and I encourage people to check it out.
Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you, Darryl.